Okay, welcome along to the League and Order podcast. Myself, Marc Peard. We have Blake Ayshford. Aysh, say hello to the people.
Hey, how are we going?
Tony Kemp, broadcasting out of his batch.
Is this the Phoenix broadcast? What was that Phoenix jersey doing in the back of here? That's better. Get your melon right in front of it. That's what I want to see. A couple of Warriors jerseys.
And my nose is big enough that if I turn this way, I'll cover the All Blacks as well.
Yeah. I never wanted to say anything about that.
Lavina Good, how are you?
Great stuff. Good to see you boys. Nice to be back. It's always nice to get an invitation back after I bagged out Kevin Proctor last week, but you guys sounded like you were supporting him. And in the end, all the texts came through to me telling me that I was on the right page. So it's great to be back.
I just hope there's no art people watching wanting to come around your place.
Look at that.
Cat burglars or something like that. Man. The amount of art you show off every week is amazing.
I know people.
Look at my terrible background, terrible background, and your art and class, and even you, Kempy. There's some silver ball bags right next to your ears.
Good old disco balls.
Yeah, mate, that's right.
Disco ball.
We'll get him going out here one night. Maybe this will be the rap party, eh?
Yeah, let's do it. All right, let's talk a little rugby league, and we'll start with the Warriors. As we always like to do, the Warriors, and what a victory. Even though I was convinced the referee was doing everything he possibly could do in his power to make sure we weren't going to be winning that, we got up and I'm talking as a collective here, Warriors fans, we won it. Who wants to start first with their observations?
I'll start really quickly because I was just so happy. Unlike last week, I was happy with the performance, not the result. This time, I was happy with the performance and the result. And I'm not talking about the Warriors trying to stay within that the realm of the finals. I was just pleased that they got the competition points against a team that's at the bottom of the table, up against a referee that probably gave us no favours. And I was just chatting to Blake. He's like, how nervous were you, Lavina? And I was so nervous because I'm so used to the Warriors getting that rough end of the stick at the end of the game, dropping balls, giving away penalties. They dropped balls, they gave away penalties, but they still managed to claim the competition points. And we had the showcasing of a new kid, Turner, which made me feel as though there must be something about development, Mr. Kemp, in this country that makes us all excited and gives us a future. And I was just glad to be a Warriors fan, to watch a good game and take the competition points. I've been pretty happy ever since, to be fair. Pretty happy.
It's like a lucky duck. You're bound to get the big fish if you put your hand into the barrel 1,000 times, Lavina. Don't talk about development. Hey, look, but I will say though, I think what the Warriors showed was resilience over the let's say the last 5 to 6 weeks with the addition of Jennings and Alvaro, and then losing Tavita Harris and Kieran on the Monday, having to pull in Turner and some shaking on the benches around other players. I just think what they're doing at the moment is because they're in that whole setup. We spoke about this a couple of weeks ago, where they're in that tournament style now. They've gone from competition to tournament. I think the Warriors, and it's suiting them down to the ground. They're showing resilience. They want to play for each other. They're fit. We spoke about that with the way that Peter Hooper looked a couple of weeks ago when he had that barnstormer. And they're just not going to give until the end of the game. I was listening to a commentator on Sunday afternoon, and he just right at the beginning of the game.
I'm so happy. I'm so happy.
Happiness.
I'm so happy about this.
It's pretty good. We're ready to come to you, Blake, anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Well, I was just saying that before the game, we spoke about how the Warriors lose games that they're supposed to win.
Yes.
And when they went behind, I was like, oh, no, this is one of those. And like Kempy said, the resilience of the boys just to stick at it, get back, and then go ahead. And it wasn't like the Bulldogs. We were actually playing good footy. We were sticking in the game and playing good footy to get there. And we touched on, like I spoke to you, Lavina, what was it, 20-14? I thought, oh, no, we've missed the goals. There's a couple of penalties. This doesn't feel right. But like Kempy said again, the resilience was there. And you spoke about the two halves. For me, like I've played with Paulie Turner in the younger age in reserve grade last year, and he scored in this game 2 tries that only certain players can score. Individual tries, just brilliance. And we've seen a bit of it on the weekend when he got the ball in his hands. And he's a kid that's really off the cuff, and he doesn't lack confidence. And he's someone that we do need to hold on to. And they did say his position is fullback, and it is. He can get out the back and play footy. And I really think we're going to see him grow over the years. But for Kodi to come out and have the game he did, so we had Greenie at the start of the year who was the main person. Kodi just had to come in and go down a short side, eyes up footy. But for him to take over the game the way he did, I think he was the difference in the end. You know, we had Roger running 350 metres. We had Paulie. We had the forwards who were enormous again, Jazz, Tohu. But then for Kodi to come in and insert himself and sort of play on both sides of the field and be that leader who I was unsure about at the start of the year if he could actually take a game on or whether he was just going to stick to that one side and play footy off Greenie. But he showed a lot yesterday, and I think over these next 4 to 5 weeks, whatever there is left, he's going to have to put his hand up again and start really taking control. And it sets the Warriors in a good position for next year.
He's been criticised in the past for not stepping up when it's time to step up. You know, it's almost like riding the coattails of Green or not being the orchestrator that they've paid him to be when he came over here from the Broncos. But what I loved about him was the fact that he didn't have Harris Tavita beside him. So they've tried to form that combination over the last, month since Green left. And rather than toss his toys out of the cot and go, I've got this kid who's not played any first grade. And personally, I think as far as debuts goes, it was one of the best debuts since bloody probably Benji Marshall debuted, in terms of Kiwis debuting in the NRL. I thought it was outstanding from Turner, but I liked the way Kodi was in control of the whole game. He felt responsible for everything that was going to unfold. And if they won, and we can say because of him. But if they were going to lose, it would have been because he didn't put in a good enough effort. And there was lots of chat from him, Like the corridor was over and over and over. I've never seen him speak so much in a game, Blake. And he didn't stop talking. He didn't stop rallying the troops. And he showed faith in his ability and his teammates' ability, and it paid off in the game.
Can I just ask, Kempy, if your internet's back up and working, 2 things. $10 fine because you said Tavita Harris rather than Harris Tavita. Even though those names feel like they can, we're just so used to them. 2 things from you, Kempy, that I'm interested to hear from. Resilience, where does that come from? Is that a coaching thing? And secondly, Kodi, what have we learnt about Kodi Nikorima? Why is it, when can we get him firing, and what's happened where he plays games where he's not firing? Those 2 things from you, please.
Look, I think I'll answer the second one first. I think the first thing we learned about Kodi Nikorima is that he spotted the weakness in the left edge when George Ellis moved that gumboot number 17 out there to stand next to Kieran Foran. And whether it was Todd Payton coming down and saying, go down that left edge, that bloke playing out there as a front row and not a centre, and made a very good defender in Kieran Foran look average, not once, not twice, but 3 times to set up and win the game.
Why?
Well, mate, you're looking at Kodi. Kodi needed to step up. Look, I think you say this about Andrew Johns and Jonathan Thurston, the real greats of the game, is that they don't have a good game. You know what I mean? They generally play great games, and the good game is their off day. And this has always been the argument with Sean Johnson and the Kodi Nikorimas, is that they don't have great games. They have good games and average games. And when you're a marquee player, until you can turn in consistently great games, you just, when you do play a great game like what Kodi did on the weekend, it stands out like dog bollocks. But for us, it should be week in, week out. That's what the team needs, is it needs that great player showing up week in, week out. And if you look back over the history of who these great players are, like Stacey Jones very rarely played an average game. And they're liking Paul Turner to him. I think, for me, I've been fighting myself all week to remember who Paul Turner reminded me of as soon as he got the ball. He reminds me of, it just came to me when Blake was talking, he reminds me of David Peachey. He's got that long looping running style. He's really low downstairs, got really skinny legs, and he's sort of getting bigger as he goes up. But the way that he runs and steps in that, it's a la David Peachey, and it doesn't surprise me that he's better off at fullback. You know what I mean? So what the Warriors got to be really careful of there is making sure that they don't put him in a position that he isn't going to excel at. And if Blake's saying the kid's a special type of player, fullback's probably his best position till he comes through the grades and moves into the centres and possibly a half later on down the track. But at the moment, I think just be really careful on that. There's the last point I want to make about resilience is resilience is driven from your from your leaders. So it's driven from Roger, it's driven from Todd Payton, it's driven from the senior group, and you really only get resilience out of buying into it. And I think they've bought into it. Like I watched Harris Tavita last week make that tackle, and it wasn't that he missed that tackle, but he went in and put his body on the line. That's saying I've bought into something and I want to really make a difference.
Yeah. And
I think what you're seeing at the moment is you've got like I said, they're in a tournament style situation where they're all in a hotel living off the back of each other, and I guess the talk all week is, well, let's see what we can do to this competition running home. You know, we're really confident, we're fit, we're going to last the game. Let's see who else we can turn over, because they've got a few top 4 teams coming up.
The Knights.
I know. I was looking over the schedule and I was like, man, we could really make this. And I was like,
Knights, Eels.
Yeah, there's a few big games coming up. What about for you, Aish? Have you noticed anything with Kodi Nikorima that you can see that, well, he plays a good game when this is the case, or he's off his game if this happens, or he doesn't eat this? Like, is there any pattern you can see that as to why we got a great, other than being he's not capable of putting great performances back to back to back? What is it that makes last weekend's game so great and say maybe he's off the ball with others?
Well, I think the last month of footy of his has been good, and I put it down to Greeny sort of leaving. Like, there was no other choice for Kodi. Like, he could keep going along, but I think when he got that responsibility thrust upon him, that he was the actual leader in the halves and he didn't have to sort of play second fiddle to Greeny, I think he stood up and he's accepted it. And I think over the last month of footy, we've seen him take steps, and it's exciting times to be a Warriors fan if you've got Kodi Nikorima who could fill these boots as our number one playmaker and continue to do so. I just think that the new responsibility thrust upon him has been welcomed by him, and he's taken it, and that's what we've seen from him.
Do you agree, Lavina?
Yeah, I do. I mean, we critiqued him before because it was time for him to step up against the top 4 teams and hold himself accountable. But it's kind of like what H said, it's been thrust upon him. He has to be the playmaker. It's paid good money for him. And, you know, let's not talk it up too much. It was a game against the Doggies that we were hoping that the Warriors would win because the Doggies are at the bottom of the table. But the expectation is there now, and the responsibility is on his shoulders, and he has to carry it in terms of a kicking game and in terms of a passing game, and defensively he can't miss tackles. So he'll be really processing a lot over the next few days. He'll have a look at what's happening over the next month and realise that he has to put that performance in every single week. And to do that, he has to get the best out of his players. So hopefully he's not just reflecting on his game and how well he played, but he's talking to his props and his pack and saying, it's because you guys drove so much forward. I made you drive so much through my corridor, and encouraging that I was able to play a natural game of footy. So time will tell whether or not he's a changed player along that way. But like Tony mentioned 3 weeks ago, that there'd been a change in momentum from the Warriors. And I actually thought, I don't know if you're right. But usually you are right, Tony, so I shouldn't have questioned that, to be fair. But he said there's been a change in momentum, and they're growing and they're evolving and they're becoming more confident. They've spent this time in isolation, which at first was a pain in the ass for them. They didn't want to do it, but now they're thinking, we cook for each other, we exercise together, we talk about our whānau, everything's close. And, you know, they've got this tight-knit community going on overseas, and they just want to play their best football. And I think the Warriors every single week are displaying aspects of that game that makes me feel like they're playing better footy every week. And they're going to upset. I mean, if they don't make it through to the top 8, they're definitely going to upset a lot of teams that want to make it through to the top 8. And our expectation now, not just of Kodi, but of the team, is you can play good rugby league even without some star players. It is a shame. Are they going to lose the 2 Eels boys? Is Jennings going to go and Navarro going to...
They're staying for another... They've extended... But,
okay, cool.
Yeah, I just wanted to elaborate on the playmaker thing. So before, when we had Greeny, so a lot of the time, if you're the number one playmaker and your team loses, it's on you. If your team wins, it's on you. So Kodi could sort of hide away in that scene. But now that he's that number one playmaker, we win or lose, a lot of it is going to be, the light's going to be shining on him. So if we win, Kodi's played good. If we lose, Kodi's had a shocker. So like, there's a lot more responsibility now being that number one playmaker.
And don't forget, they dished up a pile of poo in the second half, the Doggies. You know what I mean? They were terrible. They made a really bad decision putting that guy out next to Kieran Foran in the centres, and then they didn't adjust to it when Kodi exposed them twice, one after the other, and left that kid out there. You know, but I've never seen a Bulldogs play so badly in that second half. But in saying that, that's why they're sitting on the bottom of the table. And yes, the Warriors should have won as well. You know, I'm texting him. Mate of mine in Aussie, and he's saying, oh, they're looking really good. I'm going, mate, they should not lose this game. You know, I can't see how they can lose this game, and that's what we really want. We want to be able to, when Lavina goes, oh, Parramatta are going to win this week, and Penrith are going to win this week. They'll win 10 in a row, and you're sitting here as a fan. Wouldn't it be great to say, oh, mate, we're going to win a game this week?
Confidence.
And that's I guess, like we're talking a hell of a lot about Kodi, but look. The team they got ain't going to win them a competition. You know what I mean? Paul Turner coming in, he may be a great player in the future, but he ain't the player that's going to take them to that next level. And I think Kodi needs to deliver week in, week out. He needs to deliver greatness week in, week out if they want him to be the marquee halfback. Because with Tavita Harris coming in the 6, and you've got the two guys that I just don't rate either dummy half at the moment. You just haven't got the side that's going to actually take you to the Parramatta's and the Penrith's level. So we get a good game. We get a good game out of Kodi. Yes, I agree with Ayshford's been playing okay over the last month, but man, we need them playing at a step above that if we really believe that they are going to take us to a grand final.
That's $20 for you now, Tony. Harris Tavita.
Mate, I was doing that all the time too when I was doing the commentary for sport. I just keep. And the other one I used to get wrong was Craig Green. The All Black.
That's right. Yes, you did too.
We always call him Craig Green. Craig Green is keep forgetting it, mate.
That's all right. No disrespect, in the way Harris did. We know exactly.
I get their last name right.
We know. Hey, it's funny because we're gonna cross back to the Eels versus Storm because I like the fact that Lavina said you can't read too much into beating the Doggies. How much did you read as an Eels fan beating an injury ravaged? I know when we're looking at our messengers, you were pretty happy.
I was happy. I sent you fellas a text on WhatsApp, and I was like, honestly, up until now, I'd swim in the morning, and I'd have these little solitary moments to myself, and I'd think, I really want the Eels to do well, but they haven't proven themselves. They haven't proven, they had points on the Roosters who clawed back, and they had a couple of tries on the Raiders who clawed back, and, the Doggies fought back against them. So they haven't proved themselves. And then I watched that game, and to keep any Melbourne side to zero. And I know the commentators are saying Melbourne were missing 5 to 6 of their players, so it was like a reserve grade team. But to keep any Melbourne Storm side to 0 and not allow them to get any points. Even I looked at the Eels attack and thought it's not fancy pants, it's not great. They can score a few points, but their defence, there's so much confidence in each other's defence. And I'm not a coach and I've never played the game. I'm in love with the game. But I wonder, how do you coach defensive structures now? Like, do you no longer coach players how to tackle, you coach a defensive mechanism. Hey, it's almost like a defensive structure. And when the defense goes wrong for other teams, it's not because they're missing tackles, so to speak. It's because they're in the wrong place defensively and they're not shutting them down. And I just think, Jack Gibson, played fine, done well. One of my finest rugby league books I've ever read. Very good coach for Parramatta. Said defense wins games. And I finally thought at the weekend watching Parramatta beat the Melbourne Storm and keeping them to 0, that defensively there's enough in that side to maybe go all the way in the competition.
Yeah. When you sent that message and you said, it made you a believer tonight, I think Kempy sort of wrote something back and I just left it. I agreed, but they're up there for a reason. They're winning games. To me, they haven't sold me as they're going to be there. Like I said, the two teams for me are the Roosters and Melbourne, but Parramatta, they're winning games. So you can't, I don't see a reason where we can bag them and say they won't be there or thereabouts at the end. What I did like, and I text you, is I liked how they threw the ball side to side and it was free flowing and it was good footy. I liked it. The passes they were doing were cutting out a lot of people. And it was sort of what the Storm used to do to teams. They used to cut out about 4 players. But Yeah, I didn't take much out of the game, to be honest. Like I said, I'm not going to ride Parramatta off. I think they'll be there or thereabouts. I just don't think that game told me anything I didn't already know.
No, and the best thing about Parramatta is that they got Dylan Brown in their side. You know, he's a Kiwi, and Dylan Brown and his young boy Turner. I think they came through the grades together up in Whangarei.
Yep.
And if I was the Warriors owner, I'd love to have Dylan Brown on my side, filling out that standoff jersey. But you know, I love Parramatta. You know, Parramatta was a team that I idolised when I was a young bloke. I remember having a bloody dream when I was 13, 14. My mum came into my bedroom and woke me up, and I was about to kick the football off with Parramatta when they had the blokes like Steve Alley, Eric Groth, Mick Cronin,
Zip Man,
Ray Price, the Bugden boys. And I give her a serve and said, "Oh, geez, mum, just about to kick off with Parramatta." You know what I mean? So the name Parramatta, and
no,
long time since I've been back between.
Just quickly, just before, I know Kempy's crackling in and out there. It's interesting you mentioned Dylan Brown. The one thing that I'm probably a little bit critical of the Eels game at the moment is that Mitch Moses and Dylan Brown play really good footy, or the team plays good footy, when they attack the line and take the line on and run on the line. I also like them playing on the same side of the field together, which they're not doing. I wonder if that'll change as they creep into finals footy. Because when they're on the same side of the field together, they're really asking questions of the opposition defence. But time will tell. It was a good win. It was a good win to keep the Melbourne Storm to 0. Yeah, the team that Blake thinks is going to make it into the grand final. It was good to keep them to 0.
Well, when you think about it, you talk about depth. So what was I think that's the problem with Parramatta at the moment. Like, there's a couple of those boys coming off the bench. I don't know if one or two get injured. I don't know who comes in.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you can have Paulo and Campbell-Gillard playing 60, 70 minutes in a semi-final match when the intensity's up. But, hey, the time will tell. I think Melbourne's depth to keep Parramatta to 14, obviously they didn't score, but to keep Parramatta 14 in a side with no Smith, no Hughes, no Munster, all these players, Vuni Valu, like that's an achievement in itself. So
I feel like
there is something upstairs there. There is something upstairs there.
Aysh's got it. So if you think about what we were discussing then and there, and I mean we use the show as a great moment to purge and get our thoughts out there for rugby league. But for I think the best way to sum that up is there or thereabouts. On the backs of that game against Melbourne Storm, who let's just say they weren't really the Melbourne Storm, were they? They were more like a Craig Bellamy's coach squad of players, because there were so many people missing. Are we there with the Eels, or are we still in that thereabouts stage? Whether they
I'm there.
You're
I'm
there,
mate.
Like the thing with Lavina though is we can't take your word entirely well for this, because it's almost like you're looking in a drawer for your socks and you find two mismatches and you're like, oh, that'll do. I'm there.
They're fine. They're great. They're my socks.
Yeah,
they're
there.
They're my favourite.
Look, I don't think they can go into the final series and win the grand final. I don't think they've got enough experience to get them through.
I'm so glad you've recorded that. I'm glad we've got that on tape.
On the back of what Melbourne Penrith can basically do. I don't think Parramatta can hold out consecutive weeks, either one of the top four sides. So,
that's the best freezing yet.
Yeah,
I just don't think I don't think they've got it.
Thereabouts then still. Yeah. So we're still thereabouts. I'm thereabouts.
Thereabouts. And I'll tell you what was funny. Did you see Bellamy after a lot of the Melbourne errors? Usually he's swearing and walking off.
He was chill.
He was calm.
It was really calm. I was surprised by that. It's interesting you mentioned that. I was really surprised by that, because normally he goes off his nut, and at halftime.
You know why, Lavina? Because he's saying, if you come up against my real side, I'm going to kick your ass.
Exactly.
Time will tell, Kempy.
That's why.
Hey, Kempy, time will tell. Time will tell.
Speaking of time, it's another bottle of wine. You're going to be poor in no time. All right, Kempy, you wanted to bring up the crusher tackle that brings in quite nicely with Melbourne into the Eels.
I think we spoke a little bit about it last week, but then we lead into this game, Melbourne Parramatta, and the amount of I agree with Bellamy. I think that they milked the back end of the game, Parramatta, to get themselves out of a bit of trouble. You know what I mean? And I still think the NRL could make a really good decision. Everyone is talking about this crusher tackle. They've come down on it, but it's not the crusher tackle. It's the actual the amount of blokes that are going into the tackle and holding players up and then just falling down to the ground with them and putting them in those type of positions. I know that Lavina sent me a video and showed me a one-on-one tackle. I'm not talking about the one-on-one tackles. I'm talking about the majority of tackles that are happening in the game when blokes are getting numbers into the tackle, which every coach is trying to teach them. And I think, I was explaining it to my partner. Back in the old days, it was collision. You know what I mean? So you had the Quinton Pongias and the Johnny Lomaxes. When we play games, it was all about winning collision. And I don't mean like collision and I'm going to tackle you, hold you, and dive at your legs. I mean, you ran at one of those blokes, you got to hide him. You know what I mean? And if you didn't win the collision and the guy beat you, you were filthy. And beating a guy in the collision and getting on your front and going up the play the ball, that was part of the game. These days, what they've done with the wrestle is the wrestle has taken out the purism of the game, which is collision. So there's not a hell of a lot of collision. Blokes are coming in. And I'll tell you about the amount of front rowers. Back in my day, the front rower stepped. Ask Paul Harrigan. The front rower stepped, it was called a cat. You know what I mean? They were running into each other trying to beat the other bloke. These days, front rowers, back rowers, they're so good on their feet, they could play wing or fullback. You know what I mean? And get through like that. And what the coaches are teaching them is to compress your line up. And when they move, Roger's a prime example here because the coaches will teach you from the inside. If you're chasing Roger, don't give it up because he's going to come back again. He'll beat the first. You've got to be there to stop him as a second defender. And I just think you change the rule. I just think if you win the collision, you win the ruck and get them off and just penalise them out of the game. That'll get rid of the crusher tackle.
So you're saying that one-on-one tackle to begin with, and then others can come in to follow. How does that rule change? How would you change the rule?
I don't think you're allowed to hold. See, what happens is you catch players and you hold them up, and other blokes come in. So I hate they call it the cannonball at the legs.
Yeah.
They can that one there. Ban that. You know what I mean? If you can't wrestle and try a guy on the ground with your strength up top, there's no way a guy should be able to shoot into your legs down the back.
So does the referee blow up the tackle as being a tackle once they've stopped and held them up? There's no wrestling. So it becomes
a pure win of the advantage line. You know what I mean? So get in there, win the collision. You can't then just jam in up on them and hold them up. The guy wraps because you slow it down in slow motion. You watch the guy gets him on the legs, the other guys. They slowly turn him down. The third man comes in and falls over.
Totally, but how do you police that? What do you put in the ruling to police it?
You penalise them.
No, but what are you saying? Write out the rule for us right now and tell us how we would read it on paper to make this go away, the crusher tackle go away.
So if there's a wrestle, simply if there's a wrestle, a catch, and there's a cannonball in the legs, it's a penalty.
Right. Okay,
simple. So when blokes are running in to collide, they're trying to win the collision. Right. I'm not talking about the guy carrying the football. Don't win the football and the guy gets through him and pushes onto the ground, it's over. It's over. He's won the ground. You can't flop on. You can't grab the legs or anything like that. You've got to let him get up and play the ball.
So
it was Melbourne that invented the thing. Don't say that Melbourne should have had a reason to complain because of Parramatta. It was Bellamy that invented all that crap to slow the play down, to do the chicken wing, to do the crusher. It was him that introduced the whole thing to rugby league. He can be held accountable for it. Parramatta might have done it for 10 minutes to win a game, but Craig Bellamy and his team's been doing it for a decade. It was them that introduced it to the game. Yeah.
What you've got is you've got rules that are being manipulated by coaches. I don't know if you remember the one. This is that kicking rule. I'm not a big fan of kicking the football, but where teams would kick the ball dead. It was better for them to kick the ball dead and get their line set, give up 30 metres, and then get into them defensively that way. You know what I mean? So what do? They change it. So we'll give them another tackle, make it 7 tackles. You know what I mean? It basically stopped them from kicking the ball dead. What I'm saying is, don't sit here arguing and talking about the wrestle and do nothing about it.
I don't know how we. When you brought up the old days, it's difficult because the game's evolved so much. The athletes these days, no disrespect to the older days, but they used to work, go have a lot more beers than these kids do. I just think the game's evolved and it's so fast these days. Like it's even faster from when I was playing last year. In one whole year, the game's completely changed, the pace of it. I don't know how we go about it. I think they will look at the crusher tackle to try and get it out somehow. But you got to remember, people are taught to hit and spin in tackles, And if you've got a one-on-one man, sometimes you do hit and spin and you won't get tackled and put in that position.
But that's my point. My point is that you're taking out the purest of which is a game of football. You know, when you're playing backyard football. So go back to backyard footy. You play backyard footy because you want to show off your skills. Now, if you've got hit and spin, and I agree with you about the change in the body shape and the football of today, but that's also a negative because they're so fit and they've got 10 interchanges. You're never going to come up against anyone that's tired, that's going to get tired in the defensive line that you're going to expose. Back in my day, you had 2 blokes sitting on the bench and the other 2 reserves came from reserve grade that just played a whole game. Yeah. You know what I mean? So taking it into context, if you can hit and this is where the Sonny Bill Williams and the Roger Tuivasa Shicks will go to another level. If it becomes a game of footy, not a game of UFC wrestling, then you've got to look at the positives that come out of that. Yeah, the positives that come out of that, not the negatives. The negatives of how do you take it out so they don't wrestle and stuff like that. What about the positives of that?
Yeah. Okay.
Where does Roger go to? Where does Sonny Bill go to? Where do those type of players go to?
So then instead of policing a rule, that would be we would sit here and more than often we'd probably have a lot of arguments about, that should have been a penalty or that, you know, because they're not going to get that right every time. Why don't we bring the interchanges down then? Like if you've said that, we could bring the interchanges down, which would make the players have to play a lot longer, get fatigued. Because bring the
interchanges down and make any choice from a kick 3 points. Then you've got a dead set, I'm going to have a crack at winning this game. You know what I mean?
I think it would be too hard to say, okay, he shot in at the legs, obviously the ones below the knees and stuff, but if you're tackling around the waist and things and then slide down, things like that, or, you know, people tackle and get 3 or 4 in a tackle, I just think it's going to be way too hard to police. And we're going to be here more, and we're going to be here more arguing about referees than about rugby league. So I think if we are going to go about this, bring the interchange down to, what is it now, 8? Bring it to 6.
You know the changing of the rules. Sorry, Lavina, but you know the changing of the rules speed the game up has created more injuries. But it's not just the changing of that one rule. It's the position that the players have got their bodies into in the defensive line. So when you go into these, let's say you miss the leg tackle when you go down below the knees, but you're lying in around the knees, and then a guy gets bent back over the top of you, but your ankle's stuck in between his arm. The next minute you've got a snapped ankle. You know, where is the medical council advising the NRL on these type of plays as opposed to coaches trying to coach it into the rule book as a way of manipulating a rule? You know, medical counsellors should be addressing the injury content that come out of this back end of the season, and hopefully the NRL are doing that to say you need to change these rules, otherwise you ain't going to have the depth in your competitions, or you're going to have to extend it to get players through a season. I haven't done an injury count on the season, but I see blokes going off week in, week out over this year, and it's simply because of the stupid wrestle that they got in the game. They need to get rid of it.
I'm trying to work out the wording of how you would make it a rule where the wrestling is out. Like, I'm trying to work out, like, I know you gave me an example of it, but it just seems too hard. Unless you're saying you're only ever allowed 2 people in a tackle at any one time, then someone just drops off. So if that person, the collision is won by player A, he gets over him, and someone else is sort of dragging, and someone else comes and cleans him up over the top, then that's a clean tackle. But if you have 1, 2, 3, 4 people on there, and when they come in, then it would be a penalty. But it just seems so messy, Kempy. Like, there must be a better way.
Wouldn't it be as simple as you cannot shoot in at the legs? That's a penalty. Yep. So that's not going to stop
That's not going to stop the crusher tackle, though, is it?
No. So if you don't make a speechly tackle first up around the legs, you can't shoot in second or third man. So that's a penalty. Yep. And the second one is that you can, if you like the NFL, you know, when a running back hits the line, what does the referees do? They don't take the ball back to where he's got it. They take the ball to there. So it's the same thing when I'm sitting around collision. If the collision is moving forward, you can't hold him up and wrestle him.
Right.
You've got to let it go. He's won that collision. And they used to police it like that. If you won the collision, they call, get off him straight away, let him go.
Is that like
your phone, Tony?
Yeah, is that your phone, or is that a sound effect?
No, it's not my phone.
Is it like a sound effect to say that you've found the answer?
It is. It is.
I'm with you, Marcus.
There's someone watching live.
Yeah.
I want to comment. I think it's Annesley.
All right. I have a couple of things. Seeing as we're speaking about news, rules, and changes, let me throw a couple of things at you, because I was like you, Aish, in the sense that I thought we were going into this game against the Doggies and we were going to do what we do when we up against a team we should be beating, and beating handsomely. We were going to lose, and it wasn't going to be on the back of us. It was going to be on the referees and the NRL, who's always against the Warriors. And I always have that mindset, and I apologise for it, but it's always in me. The throwaway of the boot penalty was where I hit peak arse. Like, the things that were in my vicinity got a absolute doing over. Whether it be swear, I was like, ah! Like, that was enough for me. I was like, this is ridiculous. So, I have that, and then there's another rule I want to combine the two, because I feel like there's a saying that can cover off everything that the NRL is thinking of doing in terms of placing rules. Third-party deals. Now, third-party deals, obviously the story came out, Tavita Pangai Jr., $650K to stay with the Broncos. Didn't take our $800K offer at the Warriors. That's a bit weird. Now all of a sudden they're trying to clean off his contract, and he's coming up with, well, what about the third-party deals that we'd agreed to in person? Like, what's going on there? You're going to pay me that? So we all know it's happening, and it's happening at certain levels with different things. But here's where I can tie the two in. As a fan of the NRL, as a fan of the game, if it doesn't affect me, and it also brings in some different storylines, I'm into it happening. So, the boot throwing, let's be honest. When someone throws a boot, it's funny. It's funny shit. Like, as a fan sitting here, you go, how far did the boot go? How long does it take till the player actually has to go back and put the boot on? How many plays does he play without a boot? Like, it's funny as a fan. We don't care. Penalise him, that's dumb. It becomes a side project that we can be watching, and we are a generation of people who need distractions whilst watching rugby league. There's other distractions. So a boot throwing is completely harmless. It's fun. It's funny. Do not penalise for it. Same again with third-party deals. Third-party deals, to me, I actually don't give a shit. I want to know what they are. I want to know what kept Tavita going, yeah, just pay me $650. But what else were you getting? Like, that to me, like, were you getting a free pair of shoes? This is something that's relatable to me, that has storylines that it doesn't harm me in any way. I want to know what those third-party deals are. And if people are doing them, just make it public. Let us know what they've accepted. You know, let us know what sponsors, like, give your sponsors a bit extra if that could be how they're doing it. If, say, Vodafone was offering the Warriors boys free internet for 2 years, let us know that that's what's going on behind the scenes. Doesn't bother me, but it actually is interesting to me, and it's a storyline where the fans could be into. That's my rant. Kempy, you did warn me. Don't get me started on third-party deals. We can start with you.
Well, you know, you should be a player manager, to be brutally honest.
What?
Because
that's the biggest insult.
That's the problem. That's the problem. Like, you know, it's right at the 11th hour, they're going to sack Tavita Pangai. And he's come out and gone, whoa, I'm holding the ace up his sleeve. What about my third-party deals? Doesn't it sound a little bit like Melbourne back in 2000?
Totally does, but what if they were all out in the open? What if third-party deals were out in the open?
No, the question is, why aren't they out in the open?
Yeah, because they're not allowed, right?
Why is there no transparency? I believe in third-party deals. I believe that if you've got a Marc Peard who's a millionaire selling shirts as a living, decides to give to Tavita Pangai $100,000 because that's what he wants to do as a third party, I have no issue with that. What the issue is that you've got all this ducking and weaving going on behind the scenes if you look at the Warriors scenario that you used around the 800,000 $650 to make a deal so that he can stay at Brisbane. Now, where is the transparency in that? But how fair is that when it's done in a ducks and drakes type manner? You know what I mean? And I just think that this is the biggest problem with the game. I think that there's a lack of leadership in and around setting in policy in place across the board. And you know the number one area we always end up back at? Your other occupation, a player manager. We always end back at those blokes. No matter when that came out that Tavita Pangai went, oh, hang on, fellas, but what about these third-party deals? I just went, well, what? Are we surprised? Are we honestly surprised that that's where that's at? Because
Well,
I reckon that's the tip of the iceberg. You wait till the real story comes out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You wait till who's connected to it, who's behind the scenes weaving and ducking. And that's what I want to hear, because that gives me more ammo to come on here and say, hey, I told you so. But the NRL need to get going some balls here. Just ban them. Ban them. You know
Don't
what I mean?
ban them. Don't ban them. Publicise
just-
them. Allow them to do third-party deals so that us fans can
But
go,
no, you can't.
I would
You
never
What
take
about the
that.
salary
You
cap?
can't.
What about the
It's
salary
no-
There's
cap?
a salary
You
cap for
can't
that.
do.
What? Okay,
Mark, you
talk to me,
can't do
Aish.
third-party
Talk to me.
deals.
I'm listening.
Because
Talk to me.
there's teams that are more funded than other teams. So,
Roosters.
what do you think the Broncos have been so good for so long? Because the third-party deals. They can keep these good players there.
So
when
you
you've got
wanna-
other teams, like when you've got other teams like the Tigers and teams like this, they can't afford to get people in and can't afford. They don't have sort of pokies and all these leagues clubs following them. They don't have money from other people coming in. They don't have the Bulldogs. They can't even get a sponsor, and you want them to get a third-party deal for someone.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
I
it's
don't.
unfair. The game's going to be.
Okay,
Always.
I'll take that on board. But here's what I say to you in return, good sir: Do we take the front runners of the sport and handicap them so that they're at the level of the lower run teams, or do we allow teams to flourish? And do we encourage them? Do we say, all right, Warriors, you now have a man who runs Ortex, and you're all going to become. You might get shares in Ortex on the backs of signing for them. Like, they become creative, and as a fan, remember, I'm only talking from a fan's point of view here. As a fan, I like to see how my club is being creative. I like to see how the sponsors are coming to the party and offering third-party deals. That interests me. I would engage in that. If I knew that Tavita was getting a horse, a donkey, and 3 goats for staying at the Brisbane Broncos, plus the 650, I'd go, oh, interesting. Would I take that deal, or would I take 800k and 2 shares in Ortex? Like, it gives me storylines as a fan, and I'm engaged in those storylines, so therefore I'm engaged in the NRL. That's what I'm saying.
No problem if it's transparent.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like it's like steroids at the Olympics.
Yes.
Okay, there's no steroids at the Olympics, Mark. I guarantee you, there's no steroids at the Olympics until a gold medalist gets a gold medal, gets tested, and all of a sudden, oh shit, you've got to get that taken off because there's steroids at the Olympics. Now, if you're going to have the steroid Olympics, have the steroid Olympics. And then have the normal Olympics, you know what I mean? But at the moment, what Ace is saying, I've got to agree with him, don't have the steroid NRL and then expect to be delivered a normal NRL when it's just not the case. The Tavita Pangai is not the only instance where this is happening.
No.
It's happening across the board. You've got Isaac Moses that's fighting to keep his license. You've got the All Brothers, that one of them's been sacked out of the competition. It all goes back to these guys that have taken the mickey out of the NRL because they have got no comeback at the moment. And unless that stops, mate, this is going to be a talking point for years to come. And it's not just about the fans; it's unsustainable.
Yeah, but I mean, where do you draw a line
Unsustainable.
on the third party? I mean, there were rumours that Jonathan Thurston was given a section up north, to try and hang around with the Cowboys for so long. Whether or not it's true, but
just pause
there's a lot
there,
of
Lavina. Just one
players.
sec. Just once. Pause for a sec. That face that Ace just made right then is the reason why it should be happening. He just went like this. As in, would I do that? Oh, that's good. He deserve it. That's my thought pattern. Anyway, keep going. Sorry, Lavina. It was
It just
rude of me.
depends on where it's capped and when it finishes and what marquee players get it. And I agree with Blake. There are some clubs out there like the Roosters that have all the backing of the Pokies, etc., and all the big sponsors that might be able to have that third party. If it's going to be introduced, it needs to be transparent and open. I just think the salary cap's a wonderful thing in the NRL. If it wasn't for the salary cap, there'd be 2 clubs that would win every single year in and year out. But because we have a salary cap, it means players are distributed around several clubs, and it doesn't mean the same teams win. The other thing I was thinking, Mark, is that the Warriors, I think this week are working on a brand new move. I know midway through last year they had that scrum move that no one was expecting. And their move this week is called the throw the boot move. And they're really heavily focusing on it. They're thinking about Kalen Ponga and Mitchell Pearce heading their way. And what they're going to do is make sure there's someone first of all on the other side of the team that is going to loosen their shoelaces. And at some stage, they're not going to do a grapple tackle. They're not going to take any chicken wing or anything around the head. They're going to pull the boot off and they're going to pass it down the back line, a slick back line, a cutout pass, a run around, a 1-2, and chuck the shit out of that boot into the crowd. So they've got an opportunity to win the game without the opposition playing with boots. It's
They'll
brilliant,
get
mate.
penalised, mate. They'll get penalised if anything. Well, the
You know,
Warriors
I'm,
get
I'm
penalised.
I'm laughing at that. It's again, that's how coach thinks, Lavina. You know? Seriously, I'm serious. Like if a coach thought that he could get away with it and have someone else throw a boot away because he could get the upper hand on the other team, they'll do it.
Yeah.
You know,
They're not doing it purposely, though.
I played in a game once. I'm just going to tell you about a rule. I played in a game once where you got 3 blood bins when the blood bin first come out. Yeah. So we had guys putting saline into their body so that they would get hit and split and go off for free interchange. You know what I mean? It's just the problem with the sport at the moment is that there's too much ducking and diving around to manipulate the pure aspect of the sport. And I personally, because this, you know, I could talk about this forever. I reckon the game is sterile. You don't need to be a coach. You tell me a coach that comes up with something that doesn't involve a lead runner and a sweeper.
Predictable.
You know what I mean? You tell me what sort of coaching is that? You know, you talk about Craig Bellamy introducing wrestling. So what did the other 15 coaches do? They went and hired wrestling coaches. You know, it's not rocket science. What they're doing is they're narrowing what rugby league looks like to a stakeholder, when what they should be doing is pulling it back and opening it back up to let us actually go back to what it was. And these third party deals and all those things on the back end of it, that's the residue of all this criminal activity that's going on beneath it. I'm telling you, it's run by the mafia.
Someone gone to the toilet. Is there someone in the toilet?
Washing noise going on in the background? Someone's water.
It's not washing. It's pissing down with rain out here.
Is that
it is
you
raining.
need to get that out.
It's raining
It's crazy.
too.
No, that boot throw, like you probably agree, Kempy. Like back in the day, you'd used to get abused by teammates or coaches if you had someone's shoe and you didn't throw it 30 meters. If you gave it back to them, you'd be like, what the are you giving it back to them? Like, it's the stupidest rule I've ever heard. I think someone said to me they did it last year and first brought in the rule last year because Maloney used to do it all the time.
Yeah,
to get a boot and just throw it in the stands. It's good.
Yeah, how many boots? How many boots did you see come off in your career, Aish? How many times did you have a boot in your hand and you could throw it?
5
Half
maybe.
a dozen.
It's a bit of fun. It's a bit of bands. The opposing fans get a chance to go, oh, he's a grub. And the fans who are supporting you who threw the boot sit there and go, how far did he get it? Like they shouldn't be penalising that shit. They should understand that that's the type of thing that can just go by. That's gamesmanship. It's a bit of fun. No one's getting hurt unless you're in the front row and the boot comes sailing at you at a 40 knots. But it's a bit of fun.
Also, back on the Pangai thing, how funny is it that because they've threatened to like cut his contract, that now it's just timing that he's brought this out to sort of
exactly. Dodgy.
You want to sack me? I'm going to say something.
Totally
dodgy, mate.
Dodgy. Say something.
So who's this player manager?
I don't know.
Here he goes. Before
wait till it comes out, fellas. I'm telling you.
Just before we completely clean that up, later on this year, when we go into vote, we will get a chance to vote on legalisation of marijuana. It's a referendum. Now, at the moment, this to me is what third-party deals is like. It's happening. It's already happening. How do we make it come out and police it and manage it? And the only way they can do it is by bringing third-party deals into the light and going, here's how you're going to manage them. You get 3 major sponsors who can contribute to third-party deals. Each club. And if you don't have those third-party, let us at the NRL help you with getting those third-party people in. Because we've got sponsors coming out our ears. I don't know if they do, but this is how I would pose it. Then you can police it. Now, if they go outside those rules, it's a player life ban. If you are getting a third-party deal that isn't watched by our lawyers and it isn't done through the books, you guys, it's a life ban. Players will not touch it if that's the case. And organisations, you're about to go down in a big way. But come out, like Kempy says, with some balls and hit it in the teeth straight away with some real proper framework around it and bring it out of the shadows. Because we know it's happening. We know it's already happening. So legalise it, let it happen out in front of us, and it gives it right back to me. It gives me, the fan, a chance to go, a property up north. Nice. I'll take that. Do you know what I mean? It's not bad for the game. If you can make it good for the game.
I probably did that face mark just because I was a bit pissed off. I was never offered any. I was never good enough to get any.
All right, just quickly before we move on to the games this week and wrap us up. 38-12, Panthers over the Sharks. Lavina, did you have anything more you wanted to say about the Panthers, or have you already got it?
I really like the Panthers. I love following them and watching their footy, and they were plagued with injury last year, and they haven't been plagued this year. And they've won 10 in a row, which is a record since the Sharkies did it like a decade ago, which is great stuff. I just don't know if the competition this year will suit them with not having any buys. And I know Ivan Terry came out recently in the last couple of days and said that he's not going to rest players. He's going to play his best team week in and week out, and you get the feeling that it might take a couple of games for them either to lose or go through their bad patch if they're going to be the real deal. Every side goes through a bad patch in the competition. And for the Panthers, I just hope it's not going to be the end of the year comp for them. But they are playing great football. They've got their spine sorted. Defensively, they're very structured defensively. And offensively, it comes easy to them. So I'm loving watching them play. I just hope that they've not got their heyday similar to what the Dragons did a couple of years ago when they won, 8 in a row at the beginning of the season and then hit the bad patch. Time will only tell, mate. Time will tell.
I want to, I'm not finished with the other question, so I'm going to go backwards, rewind. All right. So I think it's really unfair that you're picking on players. I think it's really unfair that you ban players for life because, Aish, did you read your contract from front to back when you signed it?
No, mate.
Player agent.
Players don't read a contract from front to back, all right? Not only that, but they don't understand the full intent of the deal in the sense of how it's being made and all the consequences of that deal on the back end of it. So to say that you're going to ban a player for life, I think is again where the major issue lies. All right, it's like saying, you go out there and kick that goal and win the game, but I'm going to take all the credit for it. You know what I mean? But you go out there and miss that goal, you take the credit for it. You know what I mean? So, and I think that's the people that are setting these players up for that fall are really where the issues lie in the game.
Yeah, but what motivates them? What motivates those people?
Let me finish. Whether it be a NRL director, an NRL employee, whether it's at a franchise as a CEO to a recruitment developer, the last person they should be looking at is the player. You know what I mean? Because a player, generally speaking in rugby league especially, is coming out of an environment where they don't even read their contract. You know what I mean? They're basically putting their faith and trust in someone else to do that for them, and you hope that they've got the right person sitting beside them. So when you've got these third-party deals going on in the background, they're probably just thinking, oh, it's a boat in my shed.
Yep.
They're not thinking forensic accountants.
No, I understand. I absolutely understand.
IRD.
I
just think, Mark, that when you're looking, it's glaring me right in the face where they should be looking, but everyone's looking at the wrong people, not the players.
But who employs the player agent?
Who employs the player agent? It's not who employs the player agent, it's who accredits the player agent so they can operate in their competition, is the NRL.
Who chooses the player agent? Ultimately, who does the decision come down to?
Ultimately, it comes down to the parent of the player.
Okay, so the parent, the player, however you want to pose it, we know what motivates the clubs. We know what motivates the GMs. We know that it's greed, it's championships, it's wanting the money. The purest place that you can police this is the player and their family. If the players and their families are aware that if they mess this choice up about who represents them...
Don't disagree.
Yeah, it's on them, right?
I don't disagree, but do the NRL allow that to say, hey, we've vetted these 10 player agents. So we've vetted these 10 player agents and we can guarantee they're not going to stuff up here. Because we've got them on, let's use the NFL for an example, because we've got them on a $10 million bond, and if they do, they hand that bond over. Yeah, you know what they do? They go, here's a weekend that you can spend in Sydney. We're going to accredit you with an agency certificate. Now you go out there and sign players. By the way, if you stuff up and take them to a brothel from a school tournament, you can still stay in here and get the next kids that are coming off the block.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just wrong. It's not the kid's fault. I'm saying it's not the kid's fault. The issue is whoever gave the accreditation needs to be held accountable here.
So we're both right here. Like, we can actually get this going. So you could get a lifetime ban if you choose to use someone that isn't accredited by the NRL and making sure that the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. That's how we could run it. Or you could go with your own guy, and if they mess this up, if they mess this up, and we have accredited, and they mess this up, it's a lifetime ban. So you make sure, because you set the ruling nice, firm, early on in a player's career, policies are all there.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, the policy needs to be set right at the beginning. You know, I think this Isaac Moses thing at the moment around, you know, him appealing at the High Court to get his work back, I think it's a really good opportunity for the NRL to come in and say, right, we're resetting the accredited agent policy.
Totally. Totally.
Why not now?
Yep.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying when the duty of care for the kids, you know the glaring issue that I see in this. Like, where is the Players Association in amongst all this?
True.
No way.
You know what I mean? So you got this fee that you're paying to the Players Association. New Zealand's, they treat New Zealand like an absolute joke, even though that we provide, you know, as much as 45% of their competition. But where are they in this conversation? Because if I was expecting my union, like the old days, to step up for me, I'd expect them to have a big say in what's going on at the moment. And then driving policy, saying unless you can, they'd like to do it in the CBA when they're talking about money, but what about welfare?
All right, I'm cutting us short there because we have definitely rambled on. Valid points, Kempy. I'll take that on board. I won't ban the player straight outright.
Okay. Wait for policy.
Yeah, I'll have some policy put around it first. All right, this week's game's round 16. Big game for the Warriors. That's on Saturday, 5 p.m, taking on the Knights. Kempy, we're have to cross both teams off in one go for you.
We lost the best standoff in the competition too on the weekend.
Yeah.
So.
Sad to hear Blake Green.
Mate, Ace was straight onto the text messages too, going, that's them, they're done. They're done. Mate, I think them keeping the Cowboys to nil was just a big effort too. I thought their offense was average. They looked like they were, you know, shit all over the place to be honest. But I still think they're a chance. I still, you know, quietly hoping that Blake's going to strap that knee up and get back out there. But if they lose Blake or one of us by, mate, I tend to agree with you guys. They're going to struggle.
Would we call that the game of the round? I quite like the idea of the Eels and Rabbitohs because both of those teams.
The Eels and the Rabbits would be the only game.
How good were they, mate?
Yeah. Thursday again, we get the best game of the round for all the mutual fans, I think, Thursday evening. That's Eels, Rabbitohs. They were good. Rabbitohs looked like the team that a lot of people thought they would be.
I think the Eels will beat them. I don't. Like I said, I still have no faith in the Rabbits. They beat a Manly team with no one. So I reckon Eels will do the job. Game of the round.
Game of the round.
That'd be a good game. That'd be a good game. I'm looking forward to that one, and also obviously the Warriors Knights one. That'll be a cracker. Be great to see Warriors put
game of the year. Warriors Knights game of the year. I'm telling you.
And it's just looking at the table too. Like there's so many teams on 12. What do we got? 4 teams sitting on 12 points and just outside the 8. We really need the Sharks to lose to the Cowboys. And the other teams in our 12th position to all be shuffling around. But we're still in it. We're still in it. Week 16. Thank you all for your time. Kempy will agree to disagree on most things, but I've enjoyed that, and I'm going back to write some policy. Aish, always a pleasure. And Lavina, thanks for showing off your art collection.
Yeah. Thanks for having me again this week after last week where I kind of bagged all you boys out. And I haven't actually sent you the text messages from our international followers. Owen from Sydney sent me a text message saying, I'm glad Proctor got 4 weeks. So I'm not going to send it through. I'll just ride through it, boys.